Hi, I'm Annette Framework, co-founder of two beautiful thriving care homes in Honolulu, Hawaii called Living Manoa and Caring Manoa, where seniors just live a wonderful life and they're able to express their ideas and thoughts. Over the 10-year period that I've worked with seniors and getting them to share their stories, I realized that many other families, including myself when I was trying to do this with my parents, don't really have the skills or the time to do this. And I want to tell you today that you're not alone. There are other people who are going through this. I wish I could ask mom and dad about something, but maybe this is not the right time. So what I want to do is to kind of go over a list of things that you might be conscious of so that when you do try to capture their stories, you won't feel like, oh, this is not working, or I'm the only one that's not finding any success, or my mom and dad aren't opening up to me. So here are some ideas that I can give you so that you could be assured you stay on the right track, set your goals, and you'll be able to get there. Maybe not in the time frame you want to, but you'll be able to get there. One of the first things you have to realize is that when you work with seniors, you have to be really patient with them. And I'm sure you know that. With their everyday functions of eating and sleeping and transferring and going to the bathroom, but also patient because they might feel a little irritable or they might feel sleepy, or maybe parts of their memory might be a little fuzzy. So one of the things is to really be patient with them. And through the journal, it's a tool for you both to focus on a third-party instrument and not on each other. In other words, you could say, hey mom, look at this journal. It asks for this. Why don't we see how far we get with it today? So you can sort of target all of the originating questions to the journal. So be patient with them. And know how to communicate with them, because they might need to have your voice louder because they might be hard of hearing, or they might not want to be in a space where everybody's listening. So you might ask that person, your mom and dad or auntie, to go into another room. And you might have to speak very slowly. So these are basics, but nevertheless, I want to mention it to you only because you feel like you're in a community of people who are trying to achieve the same thing, but they might not be able to. The next thing is to be there. It's easy to say be there, be present, but in other words, not text or answer your phone if it comes in, because that might break the momentum, and then your senior might just take it personally, like, oh, they're not interested again. Oh, there they go again. So those are the kinds of things are like the ground rules. To be there and be engaged and just make it fun. Just make it really joyful that you're just happy to be with them at that time. So that's kind of the ground rules. Now I also want to talk to you about some things that are kind of the framework so that when you approach this, you can really be armed with some confidence and to understand that this is a certain phase of your loved one's life, and they might not be in the same way or the same mental state or disposition as before. So one of the first things we say is to just be realistic. Somebody might be so talkative and give you all the stories like in the first half hour, or you might take 2 weeks to get one page filled out. So just be realistic. Just go with the flow. Don't worry. The second thing you might think about clearly is the time of day that you want to capture these stories. We find our residents are really good in the mornings after they've had their breakfast or maybe shower, and also very good in the afternoon, perhaps right after lunch before they start getting sleepy. So time of day is really, really important, because if you come when it's too close to their nap, of course they're going to be nodding off. Or if it's too close to their meal time, they're going to be hungry. So think about the time of day. And of course, that sets up your whole organizer to figure out when you're going to be there at that time. But if you set an appointment, I can tell you your senior loved one, it's going to feel very special that my daughter or my niece or my grandchild is coming to talk to me at this time. The next thing that I would like to remind you about is that if your senior's repeating things a lot, that's age specific, and because their memory might be failing, or maybe that's really something that they haven't fully expressed yet. Nobody listened to whatever they have to say in its entirety. So I think it's really good to show your senior that you're writing down exactly what they're saying, so that if something comes up again that sounds like it's a repeat, you can say, "Oh, Mom, remember you shared this with me? Let's read that together." So that it's a tool where they just feel like, "Oh, yeah, she wrote it down, so I don't have to keep reminding her about it." Because if it's written, here it is, proof that you don't have to ask for it again. Also, your senior might be mumbling, and they might be drooling, or they might be nodding off to sleep. That's all age specific too. And so you just kind of have to let that phase pass and see what you can re-engage. And remember that if you don't do it now, as the senior advances further into aging, it might be even harder. So it's good to start somewhere. Everybody has their own developmental time clock. And wherever it is, it's best to start now. Another thing that I wanted to tell you about was that you can tell your senior that these are going to matter so much and these are so treasured, that it can be shared with their grandchildren, great-grandchildren. It can be shared with the children of their family friends. It can be shared with all the family tree that might come generations later. Ancestry.com is so popular today, and they're researching generations before. Just think if there was a journal to take further. You can actually read about what Grandpa said when he used to work 4 jobs. Or you can read how your grandma felt when she was trying to learn the piano, but she didn't like the piano. So those are the kinds of things that I wanted to remind you about, that the journal is a treasured keepsake, and it's something that will really be priceless, and you'll realize that after someone's gone. The journal can also be video journals too. It doesn't have to be written, so that you can capture these stories in different genres. But I'll have more about that later. We also want to have you remember that your senior might be a person who had a personality that was like a go-to person, can do, wants it done immediately or yesterday. So if that's the personality of your senior, for sure they're not going to want to have anything long and drawn out. They're going to be very cut and dry. It won't be flowery, it might not be descriptive, but they're just going to come to the point. And that doesn't change just because a person gets older. The underlying prevailing personality stays the same. In contrast, if your senior or family member is a socializer, they might need all the gossip first of all the family and all the neighbors and everything that went on, or gossip where they live. And then after you kind of broke the ice through that, then you can get down to the task. Another personality might be that your loved one might be thinking a lot. They're analyzing, what are you doing this for? Who are you gonna let? Who's gonna read it? Why you wanna share this? How come this is so special? Answer those questions in the most loving way, saying, you are so important to us, and this is something, even though it's your innermost thoughts, it's gonna be very meaningful for us to hang on to as we celebrate you for many, many generations to follow. Our last personality trait is a feeler, and that's a very important person, because a senior in his vulnerable state has heightened emotions, like, oh, I can't lift my arms anymore, or I can't button my blouse, or I can't even chew as often and as all those nuts and candies that I used to love. So more so, that brings on the vulnerability of this stage of their life, and they're going to be feeling extraordinarily sensitive. So as you go through this period, remember that there's all of these personality types that you're dealing with, and that even though your senior has advanced to a certain age, they're not going to leave behind their personality. They're going to take it with them, and it might even be magnified more. I have one friend who says she really doesn't like being with her senior friends because probably all the grumbling is more heightened grumbling, or all the whining is more heightened, or the victim pity party is more heightened. So just know that, go with the flow, and just know that you have this treasured time, this sacred time, and make the most of it with your senior. Another thing to remember, and I think they'll really love, is that this is a time to capture their legacy. And in the journal, there are pages where you can ask them, what are their words of advice? What did they learn out of this life? What's a legacy they want to share? These are some things that are never asked. And people just assume, oh, well, she liked cooking, so she must have enjoyed sharing her food with all the neighbors and all the relatives. But if you really ask in ways that we never did, there'd be connections that just would be aha and just so precious. So just know that this is a legacy that you're not only doing for a 1 or 2 time project, it's just going to be something where you could understand your loved one even more. And that to me is just so awesome and far out. Now I want to go into some areas that are kind of like misconceptions or myths, or kind of like things that are maybe preconceived notions. And you might think, I don't want to start this project because, number one, my loved one has no more memory, or they have no interest, or they're going to scold me and there's nothing to talk about, or they might fall asleep so much because this is not important to them, or they might just be focused on one thing. Did you bring any ice cream for me? Or they might just be focused on, do we have enough money? That's a big, big worry. If you are able to capture these stories and have conversations, this might be a way for you to allay and pacify some of their fears. So there's not so uptight during this period of feeling a little bit helpless. So I feel that these conversations could really unlock those feelings of loneliness, or maybe those feelings of being helpless, or those feelings of being bored. Because it said that even though a person's shackled or imprisoned in some way or the other, imprisoned in a body that doesn't work anymore, they can have freedom and liberation in their minds. And if that's the case, that's all of it. Because someone else is going to take care of them, help them to the bathroom, help them to eat their meals, help them to take meds, help them to fix meals. But they need to know emotionally not to be so worried, not to be so preoccupied, not to feel that they're a bother. That's one of the greatest things. I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to be a burden to my family. I don't want to be a burden to others. If you share that with them and they're able to express it, you can reassure. They can be feeling like there's a cycle of understanding. And I can guarantee you, you will be changed through this process. Not only your senior, this is going to tremendously affect you as well. So if you have any questions, you'll see right below a section where you can email me through Facebook and tell me more about your experience. But I want you to give this a try and tell me your feedback, because you're not alone. Our senior population is growing. We do not want to leave our loved ones sitting there feeling that time is ticking away and they just don't matter. We'll see you soon, and let's connect with our seniors today.